broadcasting. Here we are, Connect 757 with Ian Honaker of Let's Talk Wine in Chesapeake, Virginia. Ian, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Hope you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, your shop, and then a little bit about wine.
All right, absolutely. Thank you very much. Again, my name's Ian Honaker. I'm with Let's Talk Wine. Formerly have a restaurant background and also a wholesaler background. I'm a sommelier by trade, but now I'm in the wine business in the retail capacity. So today we're going to talk about the tasting method and wines in general. My shop is Let's Talk Wine at Edinburgh Commons, 8A off the bypass on 168 South. And like I said, it's just all about good wines and good tasting type things. So most people have a perception of, or don't have a real good perception of how to taste wine. They kind of just stumble through it without any direction. But as a sommelier, we use a method called deductive reasoning and a tasting method that is pretty standard, and it's very simple. If you do this, you'll probably get a better idea of the wines that you're tasting, and you'll probably get more out of it in terms of remembering about the wine, the flavors, how the wine impacts you, and things like that. So in the tasting method, it's very simple. We'll start with 4 basic steps. We'll go through those today. We have a couple of different wines too that we'll talk about, but in that, the tasting method is what we will apply to these steps. So first, we're going to start off with a wonderful little white wine. It is I Fudi de San Gregorio Falangina, and what we're going to do is pour a little bit into the glass. So if you're hosting a in-home tasting party or something like that, again, you can kind of revisit this with your guests and show them how to do this. So we're interested in a few basic things in our tasting method, and the first of that being to take a good look at the wine. Too many people kind of skip the step on getting to know the wine as that they're drinking, and in that we're going to take a look at it, and we're going to examine, just say for instance, the color, both its appearance, what the color is, the intensity, the transparency, and you kind of get a look at it. Wines that are white wines that tend to be more of a golden color can offer a little. That could be partly due to a varietal characteristic, but it can also give you hints and clues either to the wine's origin or what the wine is if you're tasting blind. Tasting blind just simply means that you don't know the identity to the wine that you're tasting, but in that, you take a look at the color, and like say for instance, if it's like a nice, this one's kind of a pale yellow, pale gold kind of color, a little bit of light greenish hue. The greenish hue is due to the wine's youthful characteristics. If I look down, the clarity, it's very clear. You want to make sure there's nothing floating in the wine, things like that. They kind of, no flies in your Chardonnay or something like that, for instance. But in that, you take a look at the wine overall. And also white wines too, real quick on service temperature. White wines you kind of pull out of the fridge about 10 minutes or so before you're going to drink them, and red wines you kind of put into the fridge about 10 minutes before you're going to drink them. And that'll get you to the right place if you don't have a temperature controlled cellar for service. But as I'm looking at this wine, nice pale golden hue, it's clear, there's no real darkening color or anything like that, so it probably to me would suggest that there's a lot of oak influence on this wine. The next step after you take a look at the wine is going to be to swirl it. And what you do is you probably see a bunch of wine people or wine geeks or things like that swirling their wine, and eventually it becomes kind of contagious, and you'll probably carry over like I do into swirling milk, swirling water, just as a sheer habit. But you swirl to release the volatile components of the wine, and you release the aroma. So as the molecules hammer into each other, they kind of release those aromas, and that allows you to really get the full aroma of a wine. So in the aroma, the smell of the wine, you're going to want to actually smell the wine, and when you do, you don't want to, you want to pay attention to this step, because 95% of everything that you taste is going to be from smelling of the wine. It comes from the olfactory bulb in the back of the nasal cavity, and without that, you're missing a grand portion of the wine. So as I'm swirling, I'm going to get smell, and here there's no right or wrong answer. So you just take a deep, nice, intense whiff, and then just kind of let your brain do the work for you. Don't think about what you should be smelling, but think about what you actually are smelling. So I'm going to go ahead and swirl it. All right, beautiful nose there. A lot of white fruits, white flowers, a little bit of introduction of yellow fruits. There's no real oaky component there that I'm getting. I'm just getting some real liquid purity. I'm also getting almost like a slight almond at the end. To me, that would indicate the wine's, portion of the wine's identity if I didn't know what it was. In this case, we do know what it is. So as I smell it, I pick up those things. You kind of want to come across, a couple of 2 or 3 fruits. If you notice any flower character, if you notice a big whiff of alcohol, that could be that the wine has a little excessive alcohol in it. If you notice that volatile alcohol or volatile acidity, you can also pick out the scent of whether the wine has any oak treatment or not. And there's 4 basic scents that are going to tell you if a wine has oak in it or not. And they are simply vanilla, cinnamon, a little bit of caramel and or toast, and kind of a woodsy smell too, kind of goes along with that. But those are the 4 basic descriptors. So if you don't smell any vanilla, toast, cinnamon, or caramel, things like that, then it's probably not going to have any oak influence, and it probably would be like a stainless steel fermented wine or something like that nature. So in that smells great. The next step is going to be to sip the wine. When you sip the wine, it's not like a tequila shot. It is a sipping wine, and you want to play with it on the palate and kind of get a bit out of it. So in that, as you sip the wine, you're going to obviously swirl. You'll smell, then you'll take a sip, whatever you feel comfortable. Not a huge sip, but. And as you notice, I made a couple of sounds by pulling air in over across the palate. So that aerates the wine in your mouth and really allows the flavor to explode. In this one, again, it confirms yellow fruits, white flowers, little slight almond aftertaste. You want to also let it spread out over the palate where you touch all the portions of your tongue. Like I said, just a shot and a swallow is not tasting wine. It's actually just drinking. But tasting wine, really you want to let it dance over the tongue and play with it on the palate. And in that capacity, you'll really get the full flavor. When you aerate a wine in the mouth by drawing in air, you'll taste about 14 times more than you would if you didn't do that. So in that, again, it'll also you'll kind of get those fruit characteristics confirmed. You'll get a mouth feel. You'll get a tactile impression on the mouth. There's another thing that wine people talk about called body. The body of a wine, and the body of a wine is simply the weight of the wine as it sits on the palate. So this one is light to medium body. It's very floral, it's very fruity, fruit driven, very aromatic type wine, and it definitely has a long persistent aftertaste. The aftertaste is how long the wine sits on the palate. Once you once you swallow it, how long it sits and persists on the palate. And generally speaking, the longer the aftertaste, the better the overall quality of the wine. So persistence of aftertaste is very important. Some people tell me from time to time, I don't like wine that kind of sits on the palate, but those are what good wines do. They really resonate on the palate. So as I taste that wine, I start to think about it, and this comes into the 4th portion of the wine tasting. And the 4th portion of the wine tasting is your conclusion, and this is important in terms of what you're tasting. So if I didn't know what this was, I would say it's a pale gold color. It's got those fruits of the yellow fruits, white flowers. It's very light to medium bodied. It has a real persistent aftertaste and almost a little almond type characteristic. There's no real oak presence on the palate. And then I think about it and I say, well, what do those describe? To me, the almond kind of gives it away as, and the real flowery essence gives it away as like, Falangina. You kind of deduce what it's not to kind of tell what it is. So it doesn't taste to me like Chardonnay. It doesn't taste to me like Sauvignon Blanc. It doesn't taste to me like other grape varietals. But definitely Falangina. If it was a little bit more flowery, it'd probably be Fiano. But this is from southern Italy, and it is Falangina. You also ask yourself too in your conclusion: do you like the wine? Does it taste typical of the area that the wine is made from? In that, yes, it does. It tastes like southern Italy, wine outside of Naples, and with that area you get a lot of fresh, pure ingredients. So in the wines, you want wines that match up that kind of thing.